But
I mean, I the only reason I reject you guys is because we saw how successful Blade was. Black character, no build up, boom. So if it's done right, you can start with it. I'm not going to sell black people short and say you can't start with them. But I'll say this because I understand where she's coming from. But I'll just say, as long as it's good, as long as it works, I'm good with it. Like if you want to do a black Superman, it better be good.
Right.
It better be good. If not, I'm going to say you shouldn't have did that.
Buff, you got a question or you want me to go?
I have a question, but I don't mind.
Let's hit it. It's up to you guys.
Well, Razi started off talking about Marvel at the top of the show. So I'm going to talk about their distant cousin, DC. And a comment that Tabitha actually made that when she first said it, I was like, but then I kind of understood where she was coming from and want to see what you guys thought about it. So the current show on HBO Max now is Titans. And I know you guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but so originally Starfire is a white girl in the comics. Or she's different. She's been different colors, right? Like
she's orange technically. So she's an alien and she's orange, but people put her in the white category. Like she's white.
So Tabitha didn't like that she doesn't care for Starfire being played by a black woman on Titans. And at first I'm like, the hell is wrong with you? You know, black girl magic, black. But she was like, no, there are so many other black characters that they could use. Just highlight them. We shouldn't be taking, I guess, historically white characters and trying to make them black. I know they were at one time talking about James Bond being Idris Elba and things like that. So I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on that as far as, taking known white characters and just making them black to give us, I guess, some type of equality. That should we just be highlighting characters that, because I think DC has a character named Vixen. That's a black woman. They have other black characters that we could give shine to and just highlight them instead of trying to change.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we didn't start this. Cleopatra does not look like Liz Taylor. That's always the argument, So they've been doing this since the beginning of time. I mean, they've had white people play Indians or Native Americans. Like it's just so
Mexicans,
name it, Asians, name it. So I have no remorse. We're not appropriating their culture. These are fictional characters, people. Fictional characters. Somebody has an idea of a person or something in their mind.
Well, don't just say it's fictional because we flip our shit if George Clooney played Black Panther.
Because the thing about it, it's because of where he's supposed to be at. Like if you have this prince of an African nation being played by George Clooney, that's one thing. Starfire, go back to the original. Starfire is an alien who was orange. They whitewashed her on Teen Titans, and all of a sudden, she can't be black. I get it, Starfire. Her character is really. She's calmed down a little bit. In the beginning, she was really irritating to me, with the hair and everything like that. But these are fictional characters, and you have to think at the time people were making these characters up. It was dominated by white culture. It was taboo to put a black character in certain roles. You weren't going to get the support. So I think it's more of I guess writing the situation, saying, hey, let's make these characters diverse. The fact that Beast Boy is Asian, right? He's not Asian in the original comics.
Right.
I think they're trying to show diversity in these, why does Beast Boy have to be a white boy? Why does this alien have to be a white girl? Why does this why? It's challenging the norms and saying 10 years from now, if Titans is going on, they remake the comics based off of this show and Jasmine's drawing Starfire, could 10 years from now, Starfire just be known as a black woman? The same reason they're remaking all these Batmans and Batgirls and Robins. They're creating different, they're, I guess, trying to I don't say right their wrongs, because I think they was just so monotonous of what all these characters were. It's like, hey, we have this plethora of characters. Let's change it. Even with Vixen, Vixen was like to me, Vixen is more of a cliche. Like this African, like she's tied into this African godlike thing, and like, dude, it's like every black character does not have to be tied to Africa or be some badass from jail. Starfire is one of the most powerful, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Like she's probably the most powerful Titan.
Yeah.
Her and Raven kind of go back and forth, but she's one of the most powerful people in the DC universe. And to be a princess from another planet, to me, that's empowering. Like,
yeah, and I like how Titans is doing it, because they didn't just make Starfire black; they essentially said all Tamaranians are black. So all of them, Blackfire's in this season. So all Tamaranians are black in the show. So that's kind of cool that they're saying. I mean, they're like first they're aliens. So who's to say that they just didn't all become black? And I think there's a fine line of, if there is something about that person's color or background that makes them inherently white, Black Panther being black makes sense, right? It's from an African nation, yada, yada, yada. Or, KG Beast or whatever being Russian, that type of thing. So there are certain roles that you're like, okay, that person probably needs it because it's a part of their character. Which makes sense. If you're coming from Scandinavian royalty, what was his name on the Winter Soldier? Baron Zemo. So, Thor, that makes sense that he's going to be white, right? Because he probably descended from the royalty, that aristocracy. They weren't going to let a black person get in that aristocracy. So it made sense for him to be white. So there are certain characters that I would be offended or say that it didn't make sense for them to race bend, but same with Clark Kent. I feel like you can't race bend Clark Kent because that is a part of his identity. He's such an ingrained person in American iconography and everything that it would be weird to try to say, okay, I'm going to make a black person grow up in Kansas with white parents in the 60s and it be cool or whatever. So I feel like I agree with Tabitha on, there are certain stories that we need to tell before we start trying to gender bend or race bend, some of these other characters. I would much rather see a Static Shock show than, them make a black Superman show. Even if they go the Val Zod role, which is a black Superman, it's already in the comics. So they have a black Superman already. And that's the other part about it, is a lot of people not knowing the comics. And when they hear things like, oh, there's a black Spider-Man, they're like, no, it isn't. I'm like, Miles Morales has been around for like 20 years. Or, it's like there's been a black Spider-Man for a long, long time. And so people have to just understand that if you're not really into the comics and they say that they're doing these things, like you said, Ferg, they're righting a lot of the wrongs. They're making it more inclusive, more diverse. If it doesn't really matter for the character itself, then it doesn't really matter. Like I think James Bond is another one that I feel like they should probably have it white. The 007 moniker could kind of roll over, right? Because that's a code name, but the name I feel like should kind of stay the same. But I don't know. I don't know if that's his real name or not. He could be James Bond, could be his code name, and he has a real name, and so anybody can be James Bond based on whoever is sitting in the 007 role.
So they would have to write that into the script.
They just write that in the script and be like, here's we're gonna retcon this a little bit, and here's what it is. So I can see them doing that, and it'd be just fine. Because that's the other part about it, is all British people aren't white. They're black British people. They're black,
but
people.
They're also gonna. As an international spy, is easier to fit in. Well, I guess
depending on where
places
you
go. Like now they're having things going on in South Africa or someplace like that, which it could be a spin on the Bond series. But with going back to Titans, Byron, I think it was a marketing move, just because you want inclusivity. if they just had another show where everybody was white, you're going to get some people to watch it, but it's still going to be, it's not a show, not our show. You know, and then I think you slowly introduce Black characters more into the DC universe. So you got right now popular, you have Titans, and you have Starfire, and then you have
what, the whole Arrowverse, all that?
No, the Cyborg.
Oh yeah.
So I think they're trying to build their Black cast, because just like Black Panther, I don't think would have been Black Panther without appearing in a few shows first, building his, like, okay, he's cool, rather than out of the blue you just drop a Black Panther movie. So I think they might be building up their Black cast. Maybe they can do a spinoff when Vixen shows up or Static Shock shows up, and now you can spin that off. But you have to have, you got to start somewhere.
To take pieces from both of your answers, I think in part of your answers, you used the word remorse for it. I want to be clear. She wasn't arguing this because some Black woman took a white person's role. It has nothing to do with remorse. Her thing is, okay, instead of doing Titans, do a show featuring your Black heroes. She just, and a lot of this does come from neither one of us knowing that much about comics and how they go so many different directions than what the popular characters go. Like, I think there's an Asian version of Asian version of Superman. I know there's a gay version of Captain America. These comics do all types of things, and a lot of that is we don't really know that much about comics. But her thing was, instead of doing that, do a show that's featuring your Black characters if you want that inclusivity, like you said.
But I don't think they sell it. You have to build them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, would that show be successful if they just dropped a Black character show that really nobody like? Icon is one of the best DC Black DC characters.
If you think about it, you guys have said yourself, like, the Avengers were like the lower tier of Marvel. The first movie that the MCU started out with was Iron Man. They just dropped him in there. They didn't build him up by using the X-Men and plopping them in one of the movies. So if you do it right, you can drop it in there without any buildup.
But you're talking about a white dude that the world will support. The world's gonna, as a white character, you always have a chance. I feel like they couldn't start the Marvel universe with Black Panther, just because it had to slowly be like, okay, white dude, Iron Man, I've kind of heard of him. Captain America, I've kind of heard of him. You lull him to sleep. Vixen, Titan is what Titan. The Teen Titans and the Titans are one of the most well-known DC genres. Especially they've had kids movies, kids cartoons, all this stuff. So you play off of that. You build where you're strong, and then go from there. I agree they need to make more shows, but I think they had to start somewhere, and that was the most logical place to start.
It was the safest. They didn't have to start there. I mean, I agree, Buff. They could have just said, I'm going to make an awesome movie about this Black character, and hopefully it catches on and we can build from it. But
I mean, I the only reason I reject you guys is because we saw how successful Blade was. Black character, no build up, boom. So if it's done right, you can start with it. I'm not going to sell Black people short and say you can't start with them, but I'll say this because I understand where she's coming from, but I'll just say, as long as it's good, as long as it works, I'm good with it. Like, if you want to do a Black Superman, it better be good. Because you're right. It better be good. If not, I'm going to say you shouldn't have did that.
And it's DC, and DC's had enough flops. So they have to play. You got to think. When Blade dropped, there was nothing to compare it to, right? We were just looking for some action flick. If you dropped a Black, you got the Arrowverse, the whole thing. You got all these superhero movies and characters, and you drop in somebody nobody really knows. Iron Man was the beginning of something new. That was right after the X-Men started coming out, and hell, even the X-Men to a certain extent have flopped. But because they're the X-Men, they're able to build off of it.
Not Marvel's fault, by the way. That was Fox.
So Nah, man, that's some good points though. And I think it's timing. I think it's too dangerous now in this superhero world that we live in.
But like I was saying, like Roger said, a lot of it is we don't know the comics. So we don't know the hell we're talking about.
So that's the thing.
But that's generally, that's the general audience is like there's a lot of people that don't know the comics that love the movies. So,
so you got to support, unless you want to do a cult classic, and you make a black Superman movie that just the real Superman hero, the real comic heroes are going to love. Comic lovers are going to love. It's tough. Like, you got to go with what's going to sell. I got to play it safe.
Mm-hmm.